I am showing you a quilt at my sister's home. And who made this?
My mother-in-law, Inez Royster, made it. And she was a seamstress besides working at a bank. And all of these scraps are polyester materials that she had used making things for other people.
And what kind did you say?
It's a snowball quilt, and most of that, like I said, is polyester.
And it looks like it was hand stitched on top. Look at the X's that are putting it together. Good way to use all of your different scraps.
Turn that off and I'll show you an old.
This is another snowball quilt. We think made by her mother-in-law. And then here is a...
And that one probably is.
I don't know the name of this particular pattern. But it is using a lot of different scraps also. This is another one that might just be a kind of a crazy quilt. A made-up pattern. This is just the quilt top. It hasn't been quilted yet.
But it's probably 100 years old.
Probably 100 years old, my sister says. This is another one of her old quilts, and it was made by
my father-in-law's mother. She made quilts for me when I got married, and she gave me 3 quilts that she had made.
And this one looks like it was stitched on the machine in squares. Okay. This is another quilt made by her mother-in-law. She says her grandchildren like this one because it has pink in it. And often quilts were made out of just any kind of material just to keep the children and the family warm at night because they maybe didn't have as much heat in their homes back then. Now this is the first one of our mother's quilt, and she and my daddy worked together on quilts many times. This one we think is flower garden quilt, and the edge is kind of a zigzag scallop pattern.
And look right here, Diane. This was my sister Ellen's going away outfit when she got married, and Mother made her outfit. This one down here was a dress of mine that Mother made. Most of these have a story to them. I don't know all of them, but I did know those two.
I think I had an apron made out of this, maybe. All right. Quilts can tell a story. Mother and Daddy both worked on this one, a Cathedral window quilt.
By hand.
Hand done, hand stitched to make all of these little individual quilt patterns. They are on the back. Once you sew the inside together, you have squares on the back that you sew together. I'm in my home now, and this is a quilt that I got from my mother-in-law, and I think Mrs. Garner must have gotten it from her parents or her husband's parents because it is very old. I can tell it needs to be repaired in some places. This is a quilt that came from my mother's mother, Miss Martin, and it is just a crazy quilt using all different kinds of materials, but I can remember sleeping under this when I was a child. And it is hand stitched together. I can also remember when I was a child hearing some of the older people talking about when they were children and their homes maybe had cracks in the floor in the bedroom, and so the cold air would come in and they were glad to have all of these quilts to put on the bed to keep them warm. This is my Cathedral window quilt. When I was living in South Carolina, I wanted to start one after I saw how beautiful my mother's was. And I chose these colors. And every time I would come home, my mom would say, "How are you coming along on your quilt?" And I was working fairly slow on it. And so she would take a few squares and work on it until I came home the next time. And with her help, we both finished it eventually. And I love it. Reminds me of her. Cathedral window quilt. This is a star quilt. One of my first trips that we went to the Amish country, I talked to a lady in a quilt shop, and she showed me how easy it is to make this particular star quilt. I will try to show you that soon, maybe in this video. I made this and the pillow shams and some curtains that kind of match. I showed you the star quilt earlier, but I want to show you how I made it. First of all, I want us to look at a couple of squares. This square has a printed background with a solid star. And the opposite to it is a printed star with a solid background. This one has a printed background with a solid star. And this is the one that goes with it. And it is printed star with a solid background. This will make sense as I show you how these were done. Each one with printed and solid. I am going to make a pillow, and here is my solid and here is my print. The way you start is, do you remember how we used to draw stars when we were children with just some lines that connect. We draw up and then down and then back up again and then across, and then we would go back down and it makes a cross. I'll do that one more time. Up, down, back up, across, and back down. The reason I'm going over how we did that, and each time you draw a star, it will be different because you don't have a particular pattern in mind. But when you make this star quilt, you use the solid square and the printed square, and you cut the first cut just like this, where you would draw that first line to make your star. So that's the first step. I'm putting my pieces together here, solid, under, doesn't matter which one is under. And you start from somewhere, it doesn't even have to be the corner. Start from somewhere and make a cut up to the top, somewhere around the middle, but it does not have to be in the middle. So there's our cut. Now, we remove this piece and we place the solid on the print and the print on the solid. And we're going to sew those. Okay, so both pieces are sewn. That one and this one. And now I will press them. Okay, well, I'm back after having ironed this seam. And remember, the first thing we did was to cut both pieces with the first drawing of the star. The next thing is to place the two pieces together again, exactly. And this time we're going to cut it with our second line. Let me be sure you can see, yes. We're going to cut this line that comes down to the bottom. This line right here is our second one. And we're going to do the same thing. So I'll cut this, and then I think you're going to know how to do this. Of course, you can be using your rotary cutter. I just don't have it up here with me right now, and I think this is probably the way I did the first one anyway. So I'm going to start from right here. And you could have drawn a line, or you can put a piece of paper down to help you to come out to where you want it to be. Okay. Now, again, put the solid with the print and the print with the solid. And then you will just sew these up and continue. Each time you sew, press it, turn it, and then go back to your, you can have a drawing like this. If you don't want to, you'll know that the third line is going to be cut from here up to somewhere on that side. The fourth cut is going to be that one that goes straight across. And then the last one, the fifth cut, is going to be coming back down to where you started from. That would be the fifth one. So I hope you enjoy doing these. I'm going to make all 4 of my squares and then maybe make a pillow, or I don't know what I'll make out of it yet exactly, but I'll enjoy doing all of it. I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and if you have questions, just make a comment about it. Thank you.